Imagine for a second that you've built this incredible business, right?
Which, by the way, is a massive achievement all on its own.
Oh, absolutely. You survived those brutal early days. Your sales are, consistently through the roof. Your product is basically flawless. And finally, a massive corporate supply chain is ready to hand you this multi-million-dollar contract.
It is the exact moment every founder is waiting for.
Right, it's the big break. And then after a brief review, they throw your proposal straight into the trash.
Ouch.
Yeah. And why? Because your internal corporate rule book, which is something you probably haven't even looked at in 3 years, was just a completely disorganized mess.
Yeah, and the scary part is that happens far more often than people realize.
Really. Just over paperwork.
Well, I mean, business owners tend to treat growth as a purely financial or maybe an operational challenge. You hit a certain revenue, you hire more people, you scale up.
Makes sense.
But there is this massive legal undercurrent to that growth. And if it gets ignored, it literally becomes a barrier to entry for the exact opportunities you need to expand.
Which perfectly brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are exploring a really strategic framework from a toolkit called Legal for SMEs.
Yeah, it's fantastic source material.
It really is. And it's specifically designed for established businesses. So those of you listening who already have traction, you have cash flow, you have employees, but you're staring down the barrel of serious scaling.
Exactly. The goal here is to become truly, quote-unquote, growth ready.
Growth ready. So what does that actually mean in practice?
It means getting your business to the point where institutional investors, big lenders, and those massive corporate supply chains actually want to work with you.
Because they trust you.
Right. And achieving that, it requires a complete shift in perspective for the founder.
How so?
Well, you have to look at your business from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
First, really scrutinizing your own internal mechanics. And then you have to flip the lens entirely.
To look at it from the outside in.
Exactly. Through the unforgiving eyes of a funder or a supply chain manager.
So basically figuring out what they see when they look at you.
You hit the nail on the head. And the strategies we're unpacking today, they're designed to make navigating that whole legal component of growth quick, cost-effective, and entirely reliable.
Okay, let's unpack this because I am fascinated. Let's start with that internal foundation. The underlying logic here is pretty undeniable, right? You cannot build a skyscraper on a shack's foundation.
No, you definitely cannot.
If the internal structure is rotting, the external market is going to smell it immediately.
Precisely. And that foundation begins with what the toolkit calls baseline compliance.
Baseline compliance sounds a bit dry.
It can be. Now, we are going to get bogged down in, an alphabet soup of government agencies here. But fundamentally, you have to prove to the world that your business actually exists legally and operates above board.
Right, like being registered properly.
Yes. If you aren't properly registered as a corporate entity with the state, or if your corporate tax standing isn't pristine.
Which is always a red flag.
Huge red flag.
Yeah.
Or, if you haven't secured the mandatory workman's compensation to protect your employees if they get hurt on the job, well, you aren't even at the starting line.
A corporate partner won't even read the second page of your pitch deck.
They won't even finish the first page. It's an instant disqualification.
Right, so that's basically just table stakes. You have to pay the entry fee to play the game. But assuming that's handled, the real internal architecture starts with your governing documents, right?
Yes, specifically the Memorandum of Incorporation, or the MOI for short.
Looking at the framework, I like to think of the MOI as the DNA of the company. It's your absolute constitutional rule book.
That is a great analogy.
And then supporting that DNA, you have governance rules and board policies, which are kind of like the company's daily habits.
That's a very accurate way to frame it. The MOI sets out the fundamental rights, the duties, and the absolute non-negotiable responsibilities of your shareholders and your directors.
It dictates who holds the power.
Exactly. It dictates how power is distributed and wielded. The board policies, on the other hand, handle the day-to-day operational decisions.
So you don't have to rewrite the Constitution just to buy new laptops.
Right. You don't want to amend your founding documents every time you approve a new travel budget.
Yeah.
This all feeds into the broader concept of corporate governance establishing ethical, accountable leadership.
Now, I really have to push back here on behalf of the listener.
Go for it.
Because when a founder hears phrases like corporate governance and board policies and ethical frameworks, they usually picture massive, publicly traded corporations with mahogany boardrooms and endless bureaucracy.
Oh, absolutely. The red tape stereotype.
Exactly. If I'm running a fast, agile business that is just starting to scale, like if my founders and I are pivoting product lines on a weekly basis in a garage, doesn't installing all this formal red tape just create corporate quicksand?
It feels like it would, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, doesn't it kill the exact agility that made us successful in the first place?
What's fascinating here is that the toolkit argues it actually does the exact opposite.
Wait, really? How?
Well, we have this misconception that rules slow us down, but in reality, formal governance creates agility because it builds absolute certainty and trust.
I'm gonna need an example for that one.
Think about a really busy intersection in a city.
Okay, got it in my head.
If there are no traffic lights, everyone has to slow down, inch forward, make eye contact, and negotiate every single turn, right?
Yeah, which causes a massive traffic jam.
Exactly. The rules, the actual traffic lights, allow you to move much faster through the intersection because you know exactly what the other cars are going to do.
Oh, wow. That is a brilliant visual.
Right. In a business, when your decision-making frameworks are crystal clear, when everyone knows exactly who has the authority to make a call and who is accountable for it, you completely avoid those endless debates and disputes.
And nothing paralyzes a small business faster than an internal dispute.
Nothing burns through cash quicker than an internal legal battle between founders who didn't clearly define their roles when they started.
The rules are the traffic lights. I love that. And this framework gets very specific about what happens if you run a red light, especially regarding director duties under the law.
Yes, it highlights the absolute legal duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the duty to act strictly in the best interests of the company at all times.
And this is where you realize these aren't just polite suggestions for a boardroom, right? The law has actual teeth here.
Very sharp teeth. There is a legal mechanism known as extended liability.
Extended liability. What does that mean for the listener?
This is critical for anyone sitting on a board to internalize. It means that the corporate veil, that legal bubble that usually protects your personal assets if the company fails, can actually be pierced.
Meaning they can come after you personally?
Yes. You can be held personally liable for damages if you fail in your duties.
And wait, it's not just the company itself that can sue you, is it?
No, the liability extends outward. If you breach your fiduciary duties, you could be personally pursued by creditors, by your own employees, or even by trade unions.
That is terrifying.
Let's say you are sitting in a board meeting, right? And the board is about to approve financial statements that you secretly know are misleading.
Okay, so I know they are cooked, but I just stay quiet.
Right. If you sit there quietly, fail to vote against them on the record, and the company later collapses, causing creditors to lose millions, those creditors can come after your personal savings.
Just because I was in the room and didn't speak up.
Yes, you cannot hide in the room. You have an active, undeniable duty to protect the company and its stakeholders.
Wow. Okay, so that internal constitutional foundation has to be rock solid, not just to attract investors, but for the literal personal protection of the leadership team.
Absolutely.
But let's follow the logic here. A pristine rule book is great, but a rule book doesn't code software. It doesn't manufacture physical products or answer customer support emails.
Oh, you mean people for that?
Exactly. The moment you involve other human beings to execute your vision, your risk profile just completely changes.
It does. You are transitioning from the internal mechanics to the human ecosystem.
The human ecosystem.
And a major paradigm shift for growing businesses is realizing that your quote-unquote team isn't just the people on your official payroll.
Who else is it?
It's a really complex, interconnected web of employees, independent contractors, external suppliers, and strategic partners.
And to manage all of this without everything just unraveling, the strategy in the sources says you need to perform a relentless audit of every single relationship you have.
Yes, every handshake, every email thread, every signed contract.
You pull them all out into the light and drop them into one of 4 buckets, right?
Correct. Bucket 1 is your high-risk, problematic relationships. Bucket 2 is middle of the road. Bucket 3 is completely undocumented agreements. And bucket 4 is relationships that are working beautifully.
And obviously you attack bucket 1 immediately.
Right. Anything that carries reputational risk or financial leakage has to be resolved or terminated right away.
But where most businesses seem to struggle, according to the toolkit, is navigating the categorization of the workers themselves. The classic trap of insourcing versus outsourcing.
Oh, this is a massive issue.
Let me pose a scenario for you. Let's say I hire a brilliant graphic designer on a monthly retainer to handle all my marketing materials, right?
Okay.
I tell her what to do. She works my core business hours, but she sends me an invoice every month instead of getting a regular pay slip. Is she an employee or an independent contractor? Where is the actual line?
The line is defined by control and operational dependence, not just what you decide to call them on paper.
So the invoice doesn't magically make her a contractor.
Not at all. An independent contractor agreement should strictly be for a specific task, a defined deliverable, or a very specific time frame.
Like building a website and then leaving?
Exactly. If this designer is working your hours, using your company equipment, and is economically dependent on you for her livelihood, the law will very likely view her as an employee,
Regardless of the fact that she sends an invoice.
regardless of the invoice. And if you get that wrong, and the labor authorities step in, you could be liable for years of back taxes, mandatory benefits, and severe penalties.
It's basically the permanent employee in disguise problem.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we fix the messy relationships without destroying them? Let's talk about bucket 3, the undocumented handshake deals.
The trickiest bucket.
Right. So practically, let's say I've been buying crucial manufacturing parts from this guy Dave for 3 years. We've always just agreed on a price over a beer.
Very common.
But now I want to be growth ready, so I need a formal contract. How do I initiate that formal process without offending Dave and making him think I just don't trust him anymore?
It's a very sensitive transition for sure. The strategy here utilizes a project management framework called the RACI model.
RACI, RACI.
Exactly. It stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed.
Okay, so it's a tool to clarify roles.
Yes, but you can also use the philosophy behind it to frame this exact difficult conversation with Dave.
So how does that conversation actually sound? Like, what do I say to him?
Well, you definitely don't just email him a 40-page legal document out of the blue on a Tuesday.
Yeah, that would definitely offend him.
You sit down with him and frame it around mutual success. You say, Dave, our order volumes are about to triple. And to make sure we don't drop the ball on your end or my end, we need to clarify exactly who is responsible for delivery timelines.
Ah, using the R from RACI.
Right. And we need to know who is accountable for quality checks if a batch is faulty. We need to know who to consult if raw material prices jump and how to keep each other informed.
That completely shifts the tone. You are positioning the contract not as a lack of trust, but as a blueprint to protect the relationship as the pressure scales up.
You're operationalizing trust rather than weaponizing a contract.
I love that phrase, operationalizing trust. Now, on the internal employee side, the framework makes a very distinct point about separating your legal employment contracts from your HR policies.
Yes, very important distinction.
Why can't they just be the exact same document? It seems easier.
Because they serve entirely different mechanical functions in the business. The employment contract holds the rigid legal provisions, the salary, the hours, the statutory leave days.
The stuff that doesn't really change easily.
Right. But the HR policy is your behavioral how-to guide. It's a living document that dictates your culture.
Give me an example of how they interact.
Say an employee is consistently late. The employment contract says you have the right to discipline them, but the HR policy details exactly how that happens.
Like the actual steps.
Yes. Is it a verbal warning first?
Yep.
A written warning? When does it escalate to a formal hearing?
It ensures consistency across managers.
Exactly. And consistency prevents costly claims of unfair dismissal.
Speaking of dismissals, when a business is scaling or pivoting hard, you sometimes have to restructure, which unfortunately leads to retrenchments.
It does happen.
The framework emphasizes understanding the law here, specifically that retrenchment is a no-fault termination based on operational requirements.
Which is a completely different, highly consultative, and strictly regulated process compared to firing someone for being bad at their job.
Or breaking the rules.
Right. If you try to blur those lines to quickly get rid of a troublesome employee under the guise of restructuring, the labor courts will see right through it and penalize you heavily.
Okay, so our internal constitutional house is in order, and our human ecosystem of employees and contractors is fully aligned and documented. We are a well-oiled machine.
Ready to face the market.
Exactly. Because eventually you have to take your product out of the factory and sell it to the world. And the moment you interact with the general public, your brand, your data, and your reputation are suddenly exposed to a whole new set of severe legal traps.
This is where we shift to fortifying the business against market risks. And the first line of defense is always intellectual property, or IP.
Let's break this down into 3 practical categories because IP can get confusing.
Sure. First, you have trademarks. These protect your brand identifiers, your name, your logo, your catchphrase.
Right.
Second, you have copyright, which covers creative expressions like literature, artwork, or your actual software code.
And third.
Third are patents, which protect actual inventions and novel industrial processes.
Now, to get away from just listing definitions, let's use an analogy. I like to think of IP protection kind of like real estate.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Copyright is sort of like the house you build, right? You automatically own it just by creating it, though putting a no trespassing sign on it certainly helps.
Absolutely.
But a trademark is like putting a legal barbed wire fence around your entire plot of land. You formally register it so that when you finally strike oil and your brand gets famous, your competitors can't legally stick their straw into your well by mimicking your logo.
That is an excellent way to visualize it, and a patent is the most complex of all. It's like registering the exact architectural engineering of a completely new type of bridge.
So it's highly technical.
Very. You must register a patent formally and very early, before you disclose the invention to the public in any way, or you lose the right to claim it entirely.
Good to know. But protecting your own assets is only half the battle here. The framework outlines 3 massive laws of general application that govern how you interact with consumers, and these are basically minefields for a growing business.
They really are. First up are consumer protection laws. These demand absolute transparency from you.
So you can't oversell and underdeliver.
Exactly. And if a product is fundamentally defective, you can't just point to a tiny no refund sign on the wall.
Yeah.
Sometimes, legally, a full refund is mandatory, regardless of your store policy.
Wow. Okay. And the second law?
Second are data privacy laws. We often hear about this in the context of massive tech companies, social media giants.
Yeah, data breaches and all that.
But it applies to you the moment you collect a single customer's email address.
Yeah.
The guiding mechanism here is less is more.
Meaning don't hoard data.
Precisely. Only gather the exact information you actually need for a specific transaction, get clear consent, and be hyper-transparent if any third-party software is processing that data.
Because data isn't just an asset, is it?
No, data is a massive liability. If you store data you don't actually need and you get hacked, your legal liability skyrockets for literally no strategic reason.
That is a sobering thought. And then we hit the third law, which governs credit. And here's where it gets really interesting, because I was reading through the source materials and I realized there is a massive hidden trap here.
The accidental credit provider trap.
Yes. Wait a second. Let me just run this by you. If I'm just trying to be a nice, flexible business owner, right, and a loyal client is struggling with cash flow this month.
Happens all the time.
So I say, hey, don't worry, pay me in 60 days instead of 30, but I'm going to have to add a 5% late fee or a tiny bit of interest just to cover my own costs. Have I just accidentally classified my business as a formal credit provider?
This raises such an important question, and the terrifying answer is yes. Yes, you have.
Boom, I'm suddenly a bank.
You are suddenly a bank in the eyes of the law. This is arguably the most common way a growing SME steps right onto a legal landmine.
Just by trying to help a client out.
Exactly. By offering deferred payment that is attached to a fee or interest, you cross a major legal threshold. The law suddenly requires you to formally register with national credit regulators.
Which I definitely haven't done.
Right. And more importantly, it requires you to prove that you conducted a thorough affordability assessment on that customer before extending the credit.
I didn't do an affordability assessment. I just told Dave he could pay me next month.
And because you didn't do that, the credit agreement can legally be deemed reckless. The debt might be written off entirely by a court, meaning you never get paid, and you could face massive fines on top of it.
That is wild. Just by being a nice guy, you compromise your entire cash flow.
Which is exactly why you have to manage cash flow fiercely on the front end.
Yeah.
Get deposits up front. Don't play bank unless you are a bank.
Incredible. Okay. And to protect your secrets while doing business, the toolkit says you must utilize non-disclosure agreements or NDAs and restraints of trade strategically. But the key mechanism is timing, right?
Timing is everything. You must have these signed absolutely before you share your proprietary processes with a potential partner or supplier.
Because once the secret is out in the market.
Once it's out, no contract in the world can magically erase it from someone's memory.
Okay, let's take a breath. We've built the unshakable governance foundation. We've aligned the human ecosystem. We've fortified the brand and mitigated the consumer risks.
The inside is solid.
Now we reach the apex of the strategy. We've been looking inward this whole time. Now we flip the perspective from looking inside the business to looking from the outside in.
This is the fun part.
How do we actually leverage all this legal preparation to unlock growth, access massive supply chains, and secure serious investment?
This is the exact moment all that quote-unquote red tape becomes your greatest competitive advantage. Let's look at it through the lens of a massive supply chain manager.
Okay, put me in their shoes.
They usually operate under very strict procurement pillars. When a giant corporate entity or, say, a government department looks at your proposal, they aren't just looking for the lowest price.
What are they looking for?
They are evaluating things like value for money, ethics, and accountability.
Now, why do they care about your internal accountability? Don't they just want the widgets you're selling them?
They care deeply because they're managing their own massive risk profiles. When they integrate your SME into their multi-billion-dollar supply chain, you become a potential weak link.
Ah, I see.
If your business fails to deliver the widgets because of an internal dispute between your founders, their entire production line stops.
And it costs them millions.
Exactly. Or if you get caught violating labor laws or polluting a river, it becomes their front-page PR nightmare.
Guilt by association.
Exactly. So they demand baseline compliance just to get past the security desk, your tax clearances, your corporate registrations. If those aren't perfect, you are automatically disqualified.
But beyond compliance, what do they want?
They are looking for capability and strategic fit. Can your systems actually handle a 10x increase in volume without completely breaking down?
And if we look at the other side of the coin, seeking capital from a lender or an institutional investor, it's essentially the same rigorous evaluation, right?
Very similar, yeah.
It's like going into the most high-stakes job interview of your life, but instead of bringing a one-page resume, you are literally bringing your entire operational and legal history in a briefcase.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, an investor's mindset boils down to one fundamental question. Is this a secure vehicle for my money?
Right. They want returns, but they want safe returns.
Exactly. They assess the competence of your leadership, the reality of your financial projections, and the security backing the deal. And the ultimate metric they use to judge all of this, the thing that underpins everything, is trust.
Let's drill into that because the framework talks a lot about trust indicators. It says investors actively hunt for low trust indicators before they invest a dime.
They absolutely do.
We're talking about a history of bad consumer reviews, ongoing supplier disputes, or high staff turnover. Let me pose a hypothetical for you.
Shoot.
Say I have a tech startup. We have a genuinely revolutionary product, and our month-over-month revenue is explosive.
Okay, looking good so far.
But internally, our culture is a total mess, and we have a 40% staff turnover rate. Will a hardcore venture capitalist or a bank actually care about high turnover if the revenue is just that good?
They absolutely will care, and they might very well walk away from the deal entirely.
Really? Even with explosive revenue?
Yes, because high turnover is a glaring red flag for operational instability. To an investor, it signals a systemic flaw in your leadership or your HR policies.
So they see it as a ticking time bomb.
Exactly. It tells them that while your product is great today, the machine building it is actively breaking apart. If you can't retain the talent needed to scale, you won't be able to fulfill future orders. The revenue will eventually crash, and their investment will burn.
Wow.
Trust is the ultimate currency in business growth. A legally sound, properly governed, and culturally aligned business proves that it can be trusted with millions of dollars.
So to bring this deep dive to a close, this framework isn't just a checklist of legal chores designed to keep the government off your back.
Not at all.
It is a highly strategic roadmap. You start with the internal governance of the MOI to build certainty. You align your human ecosystem to execute the vision smoothly. You fortify the business against market and data risks.
And by doing all that, you achieve true external readiness.
You are transforming the legal component of growth from a chaotic, reactive burden into a proactive, reliable engine for scaling.
You are systematically engineering trust.
And by engineering that trust, you are unlocking the exact financial and market opportunities your business needs to hit that next level.
Beautifully said.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. We've spent this entire time talking about perfecting your legal structures, right? Creating pristine policies, rigorous controls, and flawless compliance so that you become hyper-attractive to massive, rigid corporate machines.
It is a lot of structure.
But consider this. As you perfectly optimize and sanitize your business to integrate seamlessly into a giant corporate supply chain, how do you ensure you don't accidentally engineer the original soul out of your company?
Oh, that is the big question.
Can a small business become too perfectly governed for its own good? Do you risk losing the slightly chaotic, unique culture and raw agility that made your product great in the first place?
It's a real danger.
It's something to deeply consider as you prepare for growth. Because, much like pouring a concrete foundation for a skyscraper, once it sets, it is very hard to change the shape of the building.
It truly is the ultimate balancing act. Navigating that tension between essential corporate structure and preserving the entrepreneurial spirit.
Keep building the foundation, but don't lose the spark that started the fire. Until next time, keep diving deep.